So I am French. I have mostly art education. Got my master and PhD in France in art schools. I shortly had some part of my studies in Czech Republic as well, in new media and visual theory in FAMU. And yes, so I used to as well work as a curator for art exhibitions. I used to run an art space in Grenoble in France. I'm originally from Corsica. Yes, so I was not dedicated to video games. A few years later, so I moved to Estonia. So I started the video game museum, like I would say almost accidentally. Many things are, many elements of the story are similar to what we already listened to. Estonia is a Baltic state that has a huge history of piracy as well, that I found by accident, and that I understood that the oral history is very important, as Estonia is a very small country, and there is a very, archives are almost non-existing. And it was very complicated for me because I'm French, I even not speaking Estonian. But I found the topic interesting, and thankfully during my my adventure in the history of local history of video games, that I found people that helped me to keep going on that path. So I started actually, I don't know if it's the right way, but to make a short history of the museum. So briefly here, so the museum is located now at the National Library. I will come back to that here. Eesti Rahvus Raamatukogu. I will probably introduce as well, I'm working as well as an associate professor in the Art Academy, in the New Media Department and WUS Media. And of course, we are part of FGAM since several years now. We started the museum from 2018, actually from an experimentation, I would say, with students from the design department of the Art Academy. The exhibition happened actually, so we built an exhibition with students in the National Archives of Estonia. And I met a guy, Andres Rusinovskis, he's the co-founder of the museum. So we met at that occasion and we got the idea, oh, why not to have a place not for temporary experience with video games, but for permanent. And we have been lucky that I had my studio in a place called Arts Factory, which is a place where for artist studios. And there was a space, a metal factory, that was unused for years. And they told us, okay, you can try your place here. It was a bit complicated because we didn't have a collection. I had few machines from my childhood, and my colleague has few significant systems that was typical for Estonia, some clone system mostly. And for the rest, we found TVs and furnitures in second-hand shops to fill 200 square meters space. We had, of course, to renovate a bit, but we managed to make some kind of cozy place. That was interesting that when we opened the place, actually, we were surprised that people started to come and make donations. So actually, the collection of the museum, most of the collection of the museum is made from donations and by the visitors. So it was interesting that at first we didn't have any microcomputers. I remember having some course when I was a kid. But I was embarrassed. I couldn't say that to the people. No, it's a joke. You would please don't give us your things. But actually, it was very pleasant to feel this kind of, to be recognized as to be trusted, And so of course, I went back to basic language to put that machines to work with the help of my colleague Andres, and it was nice. So we had we started very fast. We had like ZX Spectrum working on tapes. We had few problems later on that the tape started to not work anymore. So we find a way of to plug like a tablet or something like that on the sound chip, so like it was possible to read the games for, maybe I shouldn't say that because, okay, it's easy to find alternatives for the tape system if it's not working anymore. But of course, there was a big tradition of clones of ZX Spectrum as well. Because in Soviet Union, blueprints of the machines was published, and so with spare parts you could build your own, finding a shell. And yes, so we have a collection of ZX Spectrum clones, and on the top, on the right, is a Yuku that was like a computer that was manufactured in Estonia in the early 90s. That's the view of the museum from outside before it has been destroyed, and it has been demolished after we left during COVID period. It was a complicated situation. So that was actually the map. One of the map, we had several ones because like the museum was exhibitions, the permanent exhibitions was changing sometimes. That's the thing, like the history of video game in Estonia is not very big. So, but as it's, there was clones, but there was as well clones of games, and that games that you could play if it was on mostly on Dendy system, so clones of 8-bit system, was games that was inspired from machines and games from abroad. So it was interesting anyway. The idea is not to tell the story, only the local history of video games, but like to use it as an excuse to as well introduce a larger story that people didn't heard about here, and where many games was taken, inspired from machines and games that was produced before. So there was consoles and portables and handheld system. We had arcades as well, arcades in Estonia. There was 2 persons in Estonia that was building all the arcades for the territory. You could find some exported one, but mostly the hardware was original, but the cabinet was homemade. So we found a new location when we moved during COVID in suburbs of Tallinn. So it was a smaller place. We made a crowdfunding and many people helped us to move the machine. So that's the machine I was talking about. That's typical Estonian arcade cabinets from 90s. And we had as well some support from shops in Estonia that help us in making deposit of their PS3. Here you see 2 stands from PS3, Xbox. The PS4 stands that you see in the back was a donation by the PlayStation Estonia that had some stands, and they left one for us. During that period, we have been approached by the National Library. They were thinking about like extending their activity in the library, and they were interested to have questioning like video games as an archive. So we have a smaller place now. The previous place that I showed was about like 150 square meters, so it was smaller than we had before. Now it's much more smaller. We have only 40 square meters, so we had to adapt the place. As well, the design changed as well, but I think it was important to work with the services of library to understand how they are working, how, like for me it was very new that I never worked with such institution before. And I had to be inventive as well about how to make the space accessible to the audience and to think activities toward video games. So the wall that you see on the back is a magnetic painted wall. With some tiles, so it's possible to recreate some pixel art on the wall. The museum is part of the educational center of the National Library. So it's very important to develop a pedagogical program for the class and to introduce video games. So as well was developed a game, like a treasure hunt that I call the Master Quest. So where schools, when they pass by, when they come, they are divided by team. They have to solve crosswords Each team has a different solution of the crossword, giving two authors. One author is Tolkien, sorry I'm spoiling, and the other author is Zapletal, was an author about game theory. And we have a library where the books are hidden inside, so they have to find it. So one find a map of the museum, the second one find a key. And actually the key is open a lock of an arcade machine that we don't see. We have like four arcades on the left corners. So they open it and inside there is the Zelda cartridge for NES. So it's a bit decontextualized because that game's never been available in Baltic states. Even I have never seen a clone of Zelda as well, so which is very strange. And actually, so that's the golden cartridge. So actually, it's interesting because that's the very first game where you can save your progress because of a battery. So like if the battery is dead, you lost the memory. So then I use that, say the kids, that's the role of a video game museum, to save the memory. So after that, they have to launch the game. That's another story. That's the National Library under construction building. So normally from 25, we are supposed to start to move back there. So we'll have like much bigger place. We can finally move the storage. That's one of the projects we are working on actually. So there was for many years, I got decided to exhibit the MoMA collection as in our archives we have like most of the collection from MoMA. So it's funny that we could exhibit the MoMA collection without sending any piece. So it's under discussions with other people from FGAMP at the moment, but it's like at the moment it's undergoing thing that I will not develop right now. Contextual case, Nupogody and Dandy. So Nupogody was a very famous Soviet cartoons that probably many people know here. So there was one of these clones of Game & Watch. This one, like in Estonia, was of course like, and in many other countries, was one of the most popular electronic games you could find in the 80s. So the wolf is catching eggs. So why I like this machine, so this I only have oral experience from that, but there was like urban legend said like if you reach the maximum score, a cartoon started to be screened on the device, but of course like it's not possible. But I like it because like it was like open door for upcoming video games that was gonna flood the market later on. So of course it's a clone of Mickey Mouse, but I like very much this. It's very anecdotic, but like I still don't know if it's a coincidence, but so maybe some of you knows that there is another version of the Mickey Mouse version, but for copyright issues, Nintendo produced an egg model for Australia, for example, and a few European countries. That actually was produced very few models of it. It's one of the rarest Game & Watch, and they used an egg, a wolf for it. That is actually, if you see, it's not really a clone of egg, as the wolf is not exactly the same. They really redesigned the wolf to have the real wolf from the cartoon. They were fan of the brick game. So, of course, in the early 90s, Soviet Union collapsed. A Game Boy is forbidden before and too expensive after. So they had to find some alternative from Asia and Taiwan. I'm talking here about the point of view of someone coming from Western Europe that grew up with the golden age of the console, Sega and Nintendo. So for me, that story are totally like how this is possible. This is not supposed to happen. So these games were extremely popular. I'm fascinated about like the codes like E9999, E576. So basically it's totally random numbers. So it's interesting because you had car games, shooter game, platform games, and all the graphics was made from Tetris blocks. No need to change the cartridge. Of course, it was not the same quality than a Game Boy. You still nowadays have some advertising. If you go to some shops in Estonia, you can get some points and having like as a reward this kind of machine. So it's still advertised nowadays. I made an exhibition about like historical retrospective of electronic games. So of course I will not show all the models here, but of course, that what I like actually on this machine, so it's funny that the car game that you could find was actually a clone of Auto Race. That was actually the very first electronic game ever made by Mattel. Here we can see, so the game's Auto Race one. So like I managed to make a kind of selection of the archives of what we have from the collection. So we started from Auto Race and end up to the Barcode Battler. So it helps as well to understand the galaxy of electronic games that was released outside from Soviet Union at that time when you could play Electronica Nu Pogody. On the ground floor, there was like some tabletops exhibited. Here, there was like some 8 of them. And on the second floor of the library, on a small podium, was this short exhibition. Actually, this picture was taken without the captions installed yet. So the Dandy was produced by Stepler, Russian company. It was a computer reseller. They started production in '92. This model you see here was the very first model. Was of course produced in Russia and exported in Baltic states. It has been like a huge success. So Dandy, the small elephant, was so in Russia there was a lot of advertising about it. In Estonia there was absolutely no advertising. It was only things that you could find some electronic shop and second-hand flea markets, but that was not something officially accessible. A lot of clones was popular at that time. UFO was pretty popular. Usually, like if you were lucky, you got the UFO, but all that machine were the same. I especially like this machine here. So here I exhibiting a different branded model, but was exactly the same than the Mega Kid. So it was like a similar system. It was a Dandy like a Dandy clone as well. You have a cartridge reader, but what is interesting, you had like the D-pad was integrated inside the keyboard. On the other side, you have the button A and B. You could have like a second controller. You could even like, there was like cartridge that was simulating an OS system. So you had Word that was called Mega Word, but it's like a clone of Windows 1.0. You had Mega Excellent, that was just Excel 1.0. So all the software was working. There was a mouse as well. And I would be so pleased to show you a demonstration, but of course, no time for that, but you can come to the museum and test it. This one was the most popular, the Dandy Junior. That was the second model that was produced after the first Dandy. You could find as well Dandy clones shaped as Mega Drive. So that's the kind of machine exhibited in the museum as well. Terminator was popular as well. Actually, I found box of Terminator 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's different model of that craps that was produced in Asia and flooded the markets in Baltic states. Subor was extremely popular as well. We have a small collection that we started a few years ago of Estonians playing video games. And in 6 years, we managed to reach 12 pictures. But it's a good beginning. With the help of National Archives, we managed to get 2, and the other ones, like from some calls that we made, people made some, like, sent that pictures or made donation to the museum. Some collections of Dandy games, clones that I was mentioning a bit before. So here we have like a clone of Monster in My Pocket that was like popular American game for, on NES that actually was reskinned as Batman and Flash. So it was as well like translated in Russian. Actually, I didn't choose the proper stills, but like it gave an idea. As well, there was clones of Mega Drive games. I'm fascinated by the covers of that games as well. Like there is some interesting. So that was produced later, like late 90s, early 2000. We have like we could find Super Mario on Mega Drive, Assassin's Creed on Mega Drive, which is actually Dragon's Lair, but who cares? Alien 3 with Predator on the cover. It's interesting. I started to collect as well some other covers that we have in the archive of the museums. So the Ghostbuster is one of my favorites, I think. So it was usually the shops were ordering for the covers of the games. They were ordering separately the games and separately the boxes, and they were just putting them together and putting them for sale. A big archive of it. We had it from shops that were just still had some materials from that time. Another thing that we are currently working on, so it's a papertronic, so it's an activity that is available now in the museum. So it's a machine that was developed by two friends, and now we are working on an extension of it. So you draw with color markers, so it's a program made on processing, and so the blue colors is the characters, the red is what you have to avoid, the green is what making points, and the yellow is the background. So you draw, then you flash the drawing, and then you can play your blue character. Then you can record the drawing, send it in another computer, and then you can even play the drawing on the TV. So yes, it's a fantastic machine. And here are some, as well, I should mention some other actors in this video game galaxy. So Game Dev Estonia, that I mentioned before, that is working as a communication of all the video game studios. In Estonia, national archives that help us at the beginning, and they are under discussion as well about digital archive, how to archive digital materials. Tallinn University, of course, and the Game Studies Master Program that we are as well cooperating sometimes. Level 1, which is organizing game jams and video game events that it's very popular organization that we are cooperating with. ČVUT Museum, they are more quiet, but they have very amazing collection of computers. And Puihataya Mangida, that is they are working as well on archiving video game history and more about news and actuality. It's like a YouTube channel. So yes, and game over.